Now let me read for you from Jeff Durbin's own words on his public Facebook page about what happened to him a couple weeks ago when he was demon-possessed. Listen to his own words. I'm going to read this for you and then I'm going to comment on it. First, let me just read it for you. Happy Thanksgiving and an update after my seizure. Spoiler alert, he's not epileptic. Okay? I'm exhausted, a bit confused, and hurting all over my body. However, I am home. 2 nights ago was the scariest moment in my or my family's life. It's virtually impossible to accurately describe. One moment, I was singing to my grandson and putting him to sleep, and the next moment, I had a crazy head rush and then darkness and confusion. My whole body is sore and I have wounds all over. My wrists are wounded because the fire department and paramedics had to strap me down because I didn't know what was happening to me, and I was scared and trying to escape and stop them from helping me. My whole family found me and witnessed me convulsing on the floor and bleeding all over the kitchen. I didn't recognize the people I love. It's really painful to think about. Praise the Lord, my tests came back very good. The doctors have no real solid explanation, except possibly stress, overworking, or physical exhaustion. I'm trying to rest and recover right now. I'm so thankful for, and he lists a bunch of people he's thankful for. Dr. James White, I'm really thankful for, and a bunch of other people. And so many more people sacrificed so much to come around my family in this traumatic experience. Watch this. I'm thankful for my son, Sage Durbin, who kept calm and tried to encourage me even when I couldn't recognize him. I'm thankful to Kyle Pointer for finding me and notifying my family and 911. I'm grateful for my wife, Candy Durbin, who stayed with me until they released me. I can't express how confused and scared I was before I started becoming coherent at the hospital. And then he thanks a few other people. And then he says, hold your family close this Thanksgiving and be grateful for everything, including your mind. Now, stop and think about this, folks. What is he saying here? And remember, this guy is a false prophet, false teacher, scumbag of a person. And he says, oh, I had a crazy head rush and then darkness and confusion. His whole body's sore. He has wounds. And he showed a picture of his wrists where the flesh has been ripped off of his wrists. The skin is gone from his wrists where they tried to bind him. Does that sound a little familiar? Remember in the Bible, they kept trying to bind him and the bands were burst asunder? They were trying to bind him and he was ripping free of the bindings. I guess bindings have come a long way in 2,000 years though, so he wasn't able to burst them asunder. But he didn't have enough demons in him or whatever. But he's trying to rip free of the bindings, rips all the skin off his wrists. He didn't know what was happening. He was scared and trying to escape and stop them from helping me. My whole family found me and witnessed me convulsing on the floor. That's what happens when people are demon-possessed. They're on the ground writhing, tearing themselves on the ground, harming themselves, flopping around on the ground. That's what the Bible said. Darkness, confusion, doesn't know who his family is, fighting off the paramedics, fighting off everyone, doesn't know who they are. My whole family found me and witnessed me convulsing on the floor. I didn't recognize the people I love. The doctors have no real solid explanation. He went in, they tested him at the hospital. Everything's fine. He's not epileptic. But yet people have reported this as, oh, Jeff Durbin suffered an epileptic seizure. That's not what an epileptic seizure is like. I've seen people who've had epileptic seizures in my presence. I've known people that were epileptic. That's not what's being described here, friends. And by the way, some people who've had epileptic fits are demon-possessed, by the way, I'll have you know. Now look, I'm not saying that they all, of course there are lots of people who do have a legitimate medical condition. And so just like the Bible said that there was a guy who was blind or dumb or deaf because of demons, obviously that doesn't mean that every blind person, every deaf person, every sick person, but some of this stuff is caused by demons. You say, well, how do you know the difference? Well, I'll put it this way. When we know that somebody's a false prophet and a rotten individual, Or when you have a singer of a band who's singing about the devil and singing a bunch of rotten things and then he has a seizure, quote unquote. You know, let me ask this. If Marilyn Manson had a seizure, do you think he's epileptic or you think he's demon possessed? See what I mean? So you look at the context of who this is happening to. Okay? But even so, this is not epilepsy. The doctor didn't say it was epilepsy. He went to the doctor and they said, you're fine. They didn't say yet epilepsy. Darkness, confusion, doesn't recognize the people. He says, I'm thankful for my son, Sage Durbin, who kept calm and tried to encourage me even when I couldn't recognize it. Who are you? Who are you? You know why he doesn't recognize him? Because it's a demon. Because it's not Jeff Durbin talking anymore. It's a demon talking. So the demon doesn't recognize the son. Who are you? And then it's not until he gets all the way to the hospital, after he's been strapped down, he's been writhing and flopping for who knows how long, doesn't know his family, doesn't know what's going on, fear, darkness, confusion. He finally comes back to reality and snaps out of it at the hospital. Now, let me just say something, and you mark my words. If Jeff Durbin was not demon-possessed, then being demon-possessed must not exist. I mean, if you're going to look at somebody who's clearly a false prophet, flopping around, foaming at the mouth, can't be bound, ripping at his restraints, lashing out at his family, and then he goes to the doctor and they run tests on him and say, there's nothing wrong with you, and you're going, oh, that guy's not demon-possessed, how dare you? Then who is? I mean, what does he have to, does he have to projectile vomit in a Catholic priest's face before you're going to call him demon-possessed? What does he have to do? And I'm sure his apologists will say, oh, how dare you, he's sick, he's a sick man. Yeah, he's sick. Just ask his drill instructors. Just ask his Marine Corps company. Yeah, he's a sick man.